Birds of Prey, issue 9,
Mm-hmm.
legacy number 207, Kelly Thompson writing with Jonathan Case and Gavin Guidry on the art.
Hmm.
So, yeah, this is kind of the start of a new arc, although it just follows on from the cliffhanger of the last one where they all went
Yep.
through the portal together. Starts off with some light humor, with what sounds like Barda telling someone that their hand is touching something that shouldn't be touching and that
Uh-huh.
they're to move it. Uh, and then when someone does try to move their hand, she says, "Not like that, move it again and I'll snap it off."
Yep.
So, all very hilarious. But the
Hmm.
setup, once they get up and they realize that they're in obviously some other world, but also they've all been like dressed in clothes that are not their regular clothes, but they're kind of
Hmm.
based, like they're kind of like weird fantasy noir versions of
Yeah,
like some of their outfits.
it definitely it reminded me of like the stuff that I've seen from Gotham and Gaslight. Like you said, that's like this fantasy noir kind of style. And all of their like Vixen can't tap into the red. Like she can feel it, but she can't tap into it. And whose gear was it? Cass's has all been replaced by what looks like toys. So definitely weird things going on
Oh
wherever
no,
they
the toy
are.
thing's separate. That comes up. Like everyone's
Okay.
gadgets are toys later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not like, but like they're, and also the art here, like it's very, very muted. Like there's very little
Mm-hmm.
color. It's
Yeah.
almost black and white, not
Uh-huh.
quite, but almost. Where there's only just a slight tint to hair, a slight tint to skin tones, and there's a lot of deep black inks in the
Mm-hmm.
costumes and stuff. And it really sells this idea we're in a different world. So the art change from the last issue does work in that sense.
Yeah.
But Babs isn't there, right? So the five of them are standing there. You
Mm-hmm.
got Vixen, you got Cash, you got Sin, Dinah, and Barda,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't find Babs, so they start yelling for her, and they eventually do find her. But before we get to that, we actually get to
Mm-hmm.
where
Meridian.
Meridian is. Meridian didn't go through the portal. She kind of
Mm-hmm.
effectively bounced off of it, like it rejected her. So she wakes up and goes to Star City to try and get help from, and I'm forgetting the character's name.
So it's Grifter
Oh no, 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 not
and Zealot.
Grifter. Zealot. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So until I saw Zealot standing there halfway down the page, I thought she was going to get Ollie because Star City, right? And this guy kind of looks like Ollie.
He's got the blonde hair,
He's
and
at
the
the blonde, and
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, they're playing with the shaggy beard, Ollie, not the goatee. Um, and then I saw Zealot, I was like, oh, that's Grifter, that's Cash. I was like, oh, okay, now it's tying it back together. Now everything makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So she goes to Zealot for help, who isn't particularly thrilled. In fact, there's a whole bit here where she threatens her
Mm-hmm.
about,
Mm-hmm.
there's something unnerving about you being so optimistic and you're from the future. And
Mm-hmm.
Meridian's like, doesn't that give you hope that I'm optimistic and I'm from the future? And there's just a
Mm-hmm.
close up panel of Zealot saying, no,
Uh-huh.
with the evil eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But yeah, they go back to where the portal is and try and like deal with, they're basically talking about it. The Mega Rod's still sitting there, what Zealot points out.
Uh-huh.
That's very strange. Why wouldn't they take that with them? But that's kind of what we get from them. It just sets up that they're kind of inspecting stuff. We get an interesting little thing. I don't know if we saw this before. Well, obviously, we've
Yeah.
heard Megara talk through
Yep.
Sin, but we get this thing here where they're talking about Meridian and not Meridian, sorry, Megara. And
Megara.
Megara basically like starts talking from the back of Sin's head, like using her hair to form a face. And it's kind of creepy. And then Sin freaks out and says, "I told you not to do that." And then the hair kind of comes around and looks at her and then sticks
Yeah.
out a tongue to be like, bleh,
Yeah.
like, don't tell me off kind of attitude. So this is just another example of like the sense of humor and like the fun character back and forth that this book's had still being there,
It's
even when we're in this weird situation.
it's the idea that Megara was the kind of the big bad of the first arc, but now it's kind of like a petulant teammate, right? I just like that whole dynamic because Sin's like, we've talked about this, and Megara's like, yeah, but Barta's been talking about me, right? And so it was just, yeah, the back and forth between them was very funny, and then it ends with Megara sticking out her tongue. Um, but yeah, very fun
So
stuff.
yeah, we're really playing with this idea as a separate entity in her now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were having fun with that last time with the drinks at the party and all that.
Yep.
And they're
Mm-hmm.
doing more of it here, so that's really cool. So they find Babs in a well and like, hey, get me up. And notably
Yeah.
though, Babs is the only one whose costume isn't in black. It's kind of just. It's not exactly what her current outfit, but it's close enough to it. It's still muted, but it's not in black, so she kind of sticks out as being different. Now, upon first reading here, I was like, well, maybe that's because she's the target. Whatever forces pulled them in here, they want her, and that's why she looks different to them. But yeah, her belt's full of gadgets and toys instead of what's meant to be there. In fact, when Cass checks her belt and there's a teddy bear, she says it's surprisingly violating, so she's very upset that someone swapped out her tools. But they sort of lower down a vine or something and get Babs out the well, which is good fun. And then some bat monsters show up, so we get a fun action scene. We get what's the special? What's the Wolverine? Fastball special. Yeah. Basically, someone's like, "Oh, we've got nothing left to throw," and Barda just picks up Cass and throws like a cannon. Really entertaining, really fun, especially since their friendship's been kind of like building over the course of the book. So I had a really good time with that little moment. But yeah, good stuff. So the hints of what's actually going on start to like they're kind of there before the reveal. And what I loved is in a few pages time, when Cass just yells out, "That's not Barbara," and then the fight breaks out. If you go back and look at the few pages before when they're all talking about what's going on and the bat monsters and where to go, like, what is this place? Because they don't know. They're like, hey, is it some sort of weird demented version of Danny the Street or something? Like they're theorizing. If you pay attention to those panels, you'll notice that in every panel we can see both Babs and Cass. Cass is looking right at Babs with like a look in her face. It's like she's like watching her closely, like she's really like taking in like who she is and what she's saying. And the panel especially. Where Babs says, "Aren't we already in a trap?" And Dinah says, "Good point." Like Babs has got this sort of like a little smirk in her face, but Cass is behind her looking very intently, like she's really deducing something.
You can tell, even though there's no fine lines, you can tell her brow is furrowed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I really like that because it's like that moment comes, and I really like that immediately Dinah just like cries out because she's the only one. Vixen has not got her powers; she can't feel the red, so she can't connect to it, and all that stuff. So they don't really know if Dinah's got her powers, but they're like, "Hey, I won't try until the moment calls for it because I don't want to like waste it in a moment if it like if it's I don't want to like use up all my juice if nothing's there." But as soon as Cass says that's not Babs, Dinah screams right into her. And Babs just kind of, whoever this entity pretended to be Babs is, just sort of stands up and smiles and says, "I guess you were pretty sure." And she's like, "Cass was sure, so am I." I really like that. It really sort of built this idea that there's a bond forming between Cass and Dinah, which is kind of a new relationship actually. I don't know if they've had much interaction before.
And it's the trust that's there,
Yeah. But like I said, when that moment hit, I went back and looked through the previous few pages, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Cass says eyeing her up that entire time. I can't deny it. Like the art was telling the story. There's nothing in the dialogue, but the art was telling that story that Cass was keeping an eye on her. So we don't know where Babs is, right? Babs is missing right now. So that's the whole thing. And this evil Babs starts like getting all creepy looking with a big mouth and glowing red eyes and whatever, turns into a giant ass bat, which little touch here, the fact that this is a giant bat monster but still has red hair, still quite funny.
Yes, very funny. And we're in the utility belt too,
Oh, you're right. Yeah It almost looks like a gremlin because of the red hair. Like the Mohawk gremlin. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of that vibe, just with
bat features because of the big arms and feet and whatever. But yeah, very creepy. And this is where I went, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, right? I mean, they theorize a little bit that like Barbara, like this world that they're in was somehow created either by Barbara or like someone used Barbara's mind to create it. Because at one point there's a clock tower that they're going towards. And I was thinking, like, why is there a clock tower here? And I'm wondering if like, there's something here about, oh, this is like kind of a nightmare world, like from Babs' like mind. Whether or not she's done this unintentionally or someone else has used her mind to create it, I don't know. But yeah, so that's kind of, we have a bit of a fight with a big bat monster towards the end. Get a big full page of Canary screaming upwards, which looks really cool.
So good.
Well, I think it's because the colors are so muted throughout the whole book, except when she uses her cry, and we get like these strong pinks and purples. So that page really stands out compared to everything else. But yeah, the portal opens from the other side because Meridian and that are doing that, and they all basically have to run for it and jump out. And that's the end of the issue. Just with Dinah, as narration says, like, if you're here, Babs, I hope we're not leaving you here. But if we are, I promise I'll get back. I'll promise we'll find you. So it ends in a bit of a kind of a downbeat note, but I like this issue quite a bit. I think it's impressive that it keeps changing visual style, but it keeps sort of finding ways to make it work. Like, I almost think that this art team shouldn't be on the next issue. I feel like this art team should only be on when they're in this world, because it feels so specific to this world now to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also like how ominous it is, where before Dinah goes through the portal, this Babs creature is staring her down, you know, and Dinah's just defiant. I think that's a great image. But yeah, I agree. The art team definitely, if they're going to do it, you know, bring this team back to do whatever the resolution is.
I say the team, whatever, because obviously I mentioned two artists. Whatever one did this world, because the pages with Meridian and Zealot were a different art style, right? That's kind of like your real normal world, and that looks way more in style with what the first arc of the book looked like, which makes a lot of sense. Like I think that works. This is a case where the two different artists make a lot of sense in the context of the book. Especially since they go out of their way to make this other world feel like it's lacking detail and color to give it a sense of otherworldliness, you know? It really does feel like they're in a different place.
So I'm pretty sure that art is Jonathan Case, who did the Batman 66 book.
Okay.
Which I can definitely see, because it's almost got some of that classic vibe, you know?
I assume this just has a more distinct coloring scheme, I assume.
Yes, this has a different coloring scheme. So... but yeah, no, I agree there. That style really matched. And it definitely has my hook on what the hell's going on with Babs. Like, I have zero ideas on what to build off of, and that's good.
We know something's after her. Maybe it's got its hands on her now. And the question is, okay, what's it going to do? How do we get her back? How do we save her? But right from the second of that issue that revealed that the next arc was going to be about saving Babs, and that like some sort of time travel entity was trying to kill her, we immediately said, okay, this feels great because we care about Babs, so the stakes feel high. And this, so, you know, Dinah making this declaration at the end of, I am going to save you no matter what, you know, feels like something the audience can get behind. Plus, you know, there was just fun stuff. Like, I think the bat creatures, because they're almost just solid black by and large, looked really cool and felt like they were fighting shadow monsters almost. The Babs bat creature looked delightfully fun and like creepy, but kind of quirky as well. Like I say, kind of like a Gremlins thing almost, with the red hair on top. I mean, I've continued to really like this book, and this was a delightful read.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, what are you rating Birds of Prey?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with that. I think I'd say an 8.5 as well. I have very little to complain about, or it's just really, really good. And I'm excited for the next issue.